you, Sonny, for that great presentation. It seems to be a pattern. Every time you speak, I usually follow you. Greetings all. Unfortunately, I didn't get to Calcutta this year because of the COVID, but I've attended pretty well most of the youth events, but particularly the Schools of Internet Governance, NIXI, in different parts of India. So today I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly with regards to the pre and post pandemic. I'm not sure if you recognize this song, but let me just play it. Let's see if you can hear it. Can you hear that? That's the introduction to the song, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So what I'm going to summarize very quickly to get the discussion going. The last time I played a song was the famous Rafiq Mohammed's song at our last event. But let's just go through some of the very quick things that we've encountered. One of the great things that have happened, and on the side of the good, was the amazing porting of students to online learning. And many of you probably have have probably experienced this as well, going online, doing different courses on Coursera or Future, various different platforms. So we've seen an amazing rise in interest in doing online education, partly because of interest and partly because it's a substitute for being in class. Now, we've seen virtually around the world millions of students being able to, their entire instruction has been put on hold, and schools have been struggling very quickly to put this into place so that the students have access. Now, the bad thing is, from sharing with you on information from United States and Canada, many of these institutions, which although said, yeah, go online, the curriculum is there, we'll have instructors, the vast majority of students have not actually productively taken courses. A very large percentage of the students have not been able to access, which are either poor or in rural or isolated areas. So they have not had the great opportunity as people maybe in wealthier or urban centers. So the ugly part of this online education issue is that even though that institutions have been dreaming of this idea, they were very ineffective in rolling it out into practice, making sure the ISPs were not doing any kind of throttling in terms of net neutrality. So we've seen a very serious issue of a lack of will from providing fair and low-cost internet, and this is a phenomenon around the world. The other issue that's a good, the bad, and the ugly, and I'll just do this one second point, not to gobble up all the time, but cybersecurity. On one good point, if we're looking at certain countries, particularly Europe and United States, the institutions have rolled out financial support to the very large number of unemployed people. Some of the funds have gone to corporate entities, and some of it has been into loans. The bad part of all of that is, like anything with cybersecurity, is that because it was a wide open gapping hole in terms of scams, that the very, very significant number of those loans and the money that was allocated to those individuals have been stolen. So even though it was the best intention, it didn't arrive to the end user. So we have a serious cybersecurity breach in terms of getting those monies to much needed people. And the ugly part is definitely lack of not only political will, because again, the US Congress is still going through the next package to provide to the end users, but the fact that they would actually provide these funds without any controls, with such sloppy techniques. So, the pandemic has created an opportunity in terms of looking at existing systems and how they're can be updated. How some of it is legacy systems that now it's being tested. Surprisingly, the ISPs have functioned fairly well despite massive increase in the work that has been done. They actually have served the community well in many ways. But again, there's a lot of bumps, and we're learning along the way. In our case, myself and Alfredo Calderon, we wrote, because we couldn't do the North American School of Internet Governance, which is a project that we do that was going to be in Washington. We decided to launch in May the virtual School of Internet Governance, and we've gone through 100 students already. In our next group, which is starting in a couple of weeks, is already full, but we do have 2 other registrations open, one for February and one for April, which I'll share the links. But that, and we wouldn't probably, we may have done this in a year or 2 or whatever, but the pandemic has really pushed this, and this is one of the reasons we're on today, is that this pandemic has made us get together and enjoy each other's company. But if I could, Ita and other hosts, if I can turn it back to you, I don't want to gobble up all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Should I go for now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please, you can go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Glenn. You initiated a good beginning on this pandemic and the post-pandemic, how the internet is behaving. So here I would like to say that in India, the same story, what is happening around the world. The way, am I audible? Is it okay?
Yes.
Yes, sir. You're clear.
Okay. So, pandemic has virus, as it is spreading more and more throughout the world. It is clear that internet has played a critical role in the pandemic response and our ability to proceed with our lives. We have witnessed an accelerated pace of services, applications, essential aspects of life that rely on internet. Now, internet, which was either the pre-pandemic era, was not used for many things, but not the way it is used post-pandemic, because now everything is dependent on digital technologies and all the payments and everything, those things have gone. This raised certain very important questions about internet and its governance. Once internet is working for everything, you are using internet. Internet is the lifeline. And then how the internet govern, whether the governance of internet is to be questioned. As you must have seen the Olivier talk, that internet governance is a multi-stakeholder process where private sector, government, civil society, and the technical community are all joining hands to work to bring out the internet infrastructure, applications, protocols, and all those kind of stuff. So when the internet is becoming very, very critical during this time, whether all the stakeholders will have the same say in the internet governance? Is anybody can tell me on the audience? I don't know whether interactive.
So they can unmute themselves. So please go ahead. Okay. If there's somebody who'd like to share their point.
So that's a very important thing to know during the COVID time. The role of the government is becoming more and more, because government has to worry about all kinds of things, whether it is the Arogya Setu tracing of the app, whether it is digital payments, whether it is other kinds of thing, any information has to be given. But the bad part, the ugly part of all these things is that once these things are there, then you don't have any control over the news. Maybe a fake news is coming up. Whether a news is correct or not, suppose exams are there, as CBSE exams are there, NEET exams are there, and IIT exams are there. So whether there will be the dates announced are correct or not, whether it is a fake dates announced by the system or by the internet authorities. So one has to be very, very careful during this time of pandemic, because there is no other source of information for getting to the correct true news and true information during this time. Similarly, if we go to the other aspects like the education. So education, as Mr. Glenn has just talked about, education is the thing which is, completely gone into the inside, home-based education, where, classrooms have gone vanished, and every system is dependent on the online courses, online examination, online access of everything, courses. So, so a country like India, which is having 300 to 400 million students, we don't have connectivity across the country. If it is good in the cities, it is not good in the hinterland, it is not good in the villages or in the remote areas. So to cope up with, because earlier we used to go to schools, but that choice is gone in pandemic. So even if the pandemic there, the connectivity is also not there, then you can imagine the kind of misery of these students, those were totally depending on the going to the school and learning. So that's another bad, ugly part of the internet, system, which is, because of the pandemic, which are faced in India. Then the third aspect is that, how the privacy, how the system, how the any kind of gadget, any kind of app which is used for transfer of payments or Arogya Setu and other kind of thing, whether that app is taking your data in a different way. So how the privacy is breached by these systems, because lot many more digital transactions are taking place, lot many more mails are going up and down, everything is depending. So there is a manifold increase in the internet traffic. ISPs are totally burdened with that. Routers are burdened with that, as just Sunny just told you. So, internet infrastructure is heavily dependent on these manifold increase in the internet bandwidth, internet traffic, and internet load, what you can say, the internet data, internet content. So, this is another side of the ugly internet, which is going to become a casualty because of the privacy breach. How to correct, how to see that how the data which is there, personal data, like critical data of your financial data, your health data, is not, breached by the hackers, and the cybersecurity issues are becoming a big issue. Then there are other issues like, content development, how the content is going to work in this kind of pandemic, because everything is working from home. So how these content developed by various journalists, the teachers, the corporate entity, so the manifold increase in the content, how that is going to play a role during the pandemic time, and how the Netflix, how the other kind of entertainment things, how the gaming systems. So all these things are going to play a very manifold increase during the pandemic. I will stop here if Glenn can do the next one.
Yeah, so go ahead, Aita. What's your next question?
Thank you so much, Dr. Govind. So we actually would like to hear from Glenn, because you're putting in a few links in the chat, and if you could talk a little bit about virtual SIG also, and then that'll be really good for our participants.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you. It's great to have an opportunity to talk about it. If any of you are up for the IGF coming up very soon, we're going to be doing a session on e-learning. It's much more extensive than just VSIG. We're going to be talking about some of the stuff we did in Puerto Rico and distance education. But VSIG was a brainchild. And think of the Chinese word for crisis. And as a character, at one side it's danger, the other side is opportunity. So we believe that VSIG was a result of the pandemic. I don't know if we would have done it so soon. We may have done it eventually, but it forced us into a situation where we created the platform. Now, it took a long time. It took 3 months to research start to research, start to use a platform called Moodle. And we ended up using the platform Moodle, and then we started the process of all the modules, the 9 modules that are central core to internet governance. And some of it is infrastructure, and that's what you learned earlier from Sunny, and that's a very thick, intensive section, and that's why we realize that some people like to read, some people like to just watch video, some people like to download the material and watch it afterwards. So what we did is we created a platform that you can watch on your mobile or iPad or any platform, and we came across research projects. We converted the material into ebooks, and that ebook you can load and watch anytime you want. All the videos that we put up on the site, again, they're posted on Vimeo or YouTube, so you can bookmark that stuff and watch it any time. So when we created the 9 modules, we looked at best practice, and the best practice, I think, is Diplo. A number of books they've done on they call it the pillars of internet governance. And so we go through history, the infrastructure, and then various elements, whether it's legal or economic or human rights or social and cultural. So each aspect touches on and drills down into deeper and deeper aspects of the internet governance ecosystem. Some of it gets really heavy, especially with the cybersecurity section. It's kind of funny because we found 13 beta testers, and what was important is to get people to review the content prior to launching. And it's interesting, every time you gave it to an economist or an engineer or a legal person, they started moving the stuff around. And everything was in the eyes of a lawyer or in the eyes of an engineer. So everything was very focused on their perspective. And so we had to be pretty arbitrary, saying, no, it's going to stay right there. But if it touches on legal stuff, we'll hyperlink. So I think that it's been going well. We had 100 students in our first group, 1 booked for the next group. We have almost full on the C group, which is starting in February. And then we're okay for in April, but we are hopefully working closer with Anja to create a separate module just for IGF youth. The news that to LAC LTD to translate it into Spanish. Very happy to talk to organizations to translate it to Hindi. That would be a great opportunity as well. I'm not saying just Hindi for the Sunny would be upset because he speaks a Southern Indian language, but yeah, we're open to ideas of working with the community where there's a need. Now, when I first started talking language translation, I talked to people for Arabic and Egyptian organization, 2 or 3 foundations, and they came back and said, yes, it'd be nice to be in Arabic, but all the people that would take the course usually do this stuff in English. So this is a reality. On the other hand, Noreen from Armenia, even though Armenia is only 8 million people, if they have the support and they have the volunteers for the editing and work, more than happy, even though it's only 8 million people in Armenia. But again, I don't underestimate the power of a small determined group. If they feel of value and they want to take it on working with us, happy to do that. So we always are looking at partnerships. The other thing about because it's interactive, the importance is not us. The importance is the students that are taking, and I shouldn't call them students. They're definitely a lot older than your typical high school or university student. These are participants. Many of them are highly professional, more knowledgeable than me in many things. All we're doing is facilitating. And the idea is, if you are doing, maybe you're doing some stuff on cybersecurity in Uganda, for example, you may want to run across the class that's on doing maybe some cybersecurity legislation in, say, Trinidad. So it's the meeting of the minds with each other that's really important in our philosophy. It's going to take some time. Remember, there's nothing in common with these people that take our course. Not like the IGF youth. You have you're a homogenous group in many ways. So we are running through this. It's a certificate program and it's free. So, again, I went after corporate America saying, give me some money. Some of them are, the richest ones are the hardest, believe it or not, but we are doing okay. It's paying the bills. I'm pretty pleased with that. I don't think that's a lot of work in itself. Dr. Alfredo Calderon, who's an education expert, and I work very, very closely together to make sure the content is current, it's relevant, and it's revising as we go along. It's been a real journey for us. When you started this back in May, I didn't expect to be working as many hours as I have been, but since I left the ISOC Board of Trustees in August, I've been able to dedicate a lot more time with it. So as a nutshell, visit the virtualsig.org. There's 3 press releases there. I try to do some reporting on a regular basis on what we're doing. And I think that's about it. Aita, any questions?
Yes. Yeah. Anshul has posed a question to me.
Yes, sir.
Whether how the government is tackling the economic divide when there is a huge connectivity issues and device issue in the country. So I will say there are a couple of things that the government has done, because as we know, the connectivity is not that much. Even if the connectivity is there, the device is not there, the smartphones are not there, though there are a lot of smartphones. But what government has done is to set up citizenship service centers in various parts of the country, villages, so that one can go to that kiosk where a person is there who will help the person to book any railway ticket, book bus tickets, payment systems, examination form systems. So that way government is trying to tackle some of the issues of these non-availability of devices and connectivity issues in some various parts in the villages. And other thing which the government is doing to have a bank account, Janadhan account with every person in the country, so that once they have a bank account in Aadhaar, they can connect with that for their payment systems to be made across the country. So these are some of the things which our government is trying to reach out to those who are still unreached, unconnected, and make them economically viable, payments and education, health services, and all those kind of things. Any other question, Ida?
Yes, sir. There's one more question. It's directed to both, actually. How has the pandemic increased the conversation around data sharing and security, with more and more personal data easily available to companies, for example, with Zoom and Google Meet?
Yeah.
Should I repeat the question, sir?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So how has the pandemic increased the conversation around data sharing and security, with more and more personal data easily available to companies, for example, with Zoom and Google Meet?
Yeah, that's a very good question. During the pandemic, that's what I already mentioned earlier, that, during the pandemic, when everything is moving to the online, every data is shared for selling, buying, payment, education, health, all these activities are done through internet. So how safe is your data? What can you do with the breach of your data? You don't know. If somebody is sitting on the online internet to hack your data and misuse your systems, misuse your payment systems, hack your money from the bank, and all those kind of things. For this, the government has, the more and more companies have made their systems more robust. The security, the CERT system in our country, the computer emergency response time, they have come out with many advisories for end user responsibilities and end user how to make the security of this end user more responsible. What are the do's and don'ts for them to do while doing these online transactions? And then the government is also bringing, personal data protection bill in the parliament. With this bill, there will be there will be a law, an act which will help the people to see how these data, the personal data, it is a critical data, health data, your financial data can be secured, and other data which is which is not that security required may be dealt with other kind of system. So these are the couple of things which the government is working on these things, and where the security, where the during pandemic, the increased volume of the traffic, increased volume of the transactions has given rise to more cyber attacks, the phishing attacks, the ransomware. So how to tackle that also is there needs a capacity building kind of thing, which is going on in the country by various organizations. And at the same time, how this is going to help the end user, that is also taken care.
So actually following up, since you mentioned the PDP bill, there is a question that was asked regarding how do government-run institutions like the Central Monitoring Scheme find relevance under Section 35 of the draft PDP bill?
Yeah, that bill, under that bill, the government is monitoring through their systems how that if the data is monitored by the government, and how that bill is saying that if that data is going to be useful, process of that data is to be done by the government. So government will, it is assumed that that the data which the government saves, stores with their server, like Aadhaar data is supposed to be quite safe and secure, though there may be some breaches here and there. But the same with the government, which custodian of these data, once they take it up, so they will see to it that this data is completely safe, secure, and it is not breached by any time.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Glenn, there's a question directed to you. What do you feel is the greatest concern or issue the pandemic has created in the internet ecosystem?
I'm sorry, I don't have my headset, so you're echoing a lot. So if you can just speak a bit slow.
Okay, I'll do that. There's a question directed to you. It says, what do you feel is the greatest concern or issue the pandemic has created in the internet ecosystem?
There's so many issues that have been created by the pandemic, because even though I think that one of the major issues is that I think it's showing that many of the systems that we designed are really still legacy systems. So we're seeing that governments are implementing various different strategies, whether it's funds to people that have been underemployed, or people who need bank loans, or various different contact tracing with the mobile phones. Many of these systems, in theory, should be able to handle the demands on them in terms of distribution of funds or tracing. But again and again, we're seeing these systems not working correctly, and again, that's partly because despite the fact that these organizations claimed that they had the infrastructure and the talent and the resource to do it, they're failing to do it. So I think we have to do a post-mortem when this all finishes, and not to forget it, like what happened in 1918. We completely forgot what happened. As you know, 1 million Indians served in the First World War. They came back to South Asia, and they spread the virus extensively. It was when India had the largest death rate because of the Spanish flu in 1918. India is doing remarkably well now. They're the second highest rates, but look at the population. So we're talking getting some of this stuff out of the COVID-19 politicization, as you see with Dr. Fauci and Trump, and wearing a mask political statement. America is very different. We don't have that issue in Canada, but in the US, what we've seen is such a polarization of the epidemic that in many ways, if they were proactive back in, we all remember back this was starting in Wuhan, and there was if one followed the advice that the CDC had and followed the advice very early on in they could have tackled this. So what we should learn is that we come up with a plan, maybe implement it. And so, and it's very difficult in very large or rural areas, especially what happened in India. People that were rural workers, ran back home, right? That's the worst possible thing that could happen if they were positive. That's sort of the things what China did. They clamped down, especially with their New Year's. So it could have been way worse in China than it did. So we have to learn from what worked and what didn't. And the Swedish example, as an example, leaving it wide open and develop the immunity. We haven't seen evidence of that. If you compare to Norway and Finland, their numbers of death rates was much higher. So yeah, I think we need to share information. And one of the biggest problems that we never expected was this massive amount of fake news, especially in Facebook and others, where they were talking about various different cures, silver nitrate, for example, or Trump was talking about using ammonia or bleach. Like these things are insane, and we can't be having this type of conversation when this could have been controlled a lot better. I don't think anyone had it right. I don't think Canada had it right. Definitely not England. But we have to take time to look at what works and where do we move forward with this. Clearly, from internet governance point of view, this is very trying to continue to do these Zoom calls. Like we just finished the ICANN meeting. That was the pre-meetings, then the ICANN meeting. Now we're going into the IGF meetings, the pre-IGF meetings, and then the other ones. I'm also involved with IEEE Global Humanitarian Technology Conference, which started last night. And, it wears you out. I don't know about you guys, but I'm fatigued. Like I'd rather run a mile, but this is insane, the amount of hours one is online with this stuff. So I think we need to rethink some of this online Zoom meetings. We are desperate to meet together again, and then we'll go from there. So there's my comment.
Thank you so much, Glenn. There was this other issue that with COVID-19, children are now getting more exposed to online crimes and they're spending more time and they have to attend online classes. So what are your opinions on this?
Oh, sorry, Dr. V, you were saying something?
Yeah. I think children are more and more exposed to the online system, of whether through education, through entertainment, through gaming. So a lot of bullying and a lot of bad things are also happening to children, which they are not aware that in internet also, like in the physical world, they can also be bullied, they can also be harassed, they can also be put pressure to do something. So in order to curb that, in order to check that, in order to arrest that, we have to see the parents have to be little more educative. Parents have to see that what kind of systems children are doing during studies. If there is a bullying system coming up, then they should take care. They should see that it is not replied, answered successively in the internet or in the mail or in the chat or in the Facebook or in the WhatsApp, so that that bullying things get stopped. If it doesn't stop even then one can go further to the complaint system, to the cert from which source it is coming up, and the capacity building for that. Children has to be taught about this kind of thing in the online, what are the things are going on and how to tackle those kind of things instead of get bullied through that kind of systems. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. So, Glenn, would you like to add to this, or should we move forward?
Yeah. I've been putting together a list of resources and observations on online learning, what works and what doesn't. It's a Padlet. It's a nice way to collect information. So I've just added the link on Teach Learn Online. So what that site does, it provides you extensively information on best practice on online learning. So, but I have to agree with Govind. You know, teachers and parents have to be proactive. You just can't throw a child at the internet and expect them to learn. They're going to be gaming. They're going to do all kinds of crazy stuff. So it has to be even more supervision. Has to even be more direction. Otherwise, you're going to see in studies in that Padlet I'll show you. There's a significant number of students. The motivated ones are going to go online and learn. The ones that are easily distracted, which a lot of people are going to get virtually nothing out of it. Maybe just gaming.
Okay. Thank you so much, Glenn. Thank you so much, Dr. Govind, for joining in today. We do have a couple of more questions for which we were thinking if you could answer them in the chat, or we can maybe mail them to you.
Sure.
If that works well for you. Yeah. And now actually since we're running a little late, if it's okay, we would like to wrap up the session, and we would really genuinely want to thank both of you for taking time out and interacting with the youth today on a very critical topic, because we all wanted to know if the way the internet is being governed has changed pre and post pandemic. So Brinda, would you like to take over?
Yeah, sure, Rahita. I think I just want to start off with apologizing to Mr. Glenn and Dr. Govind about the internet connection. I'm so sorry that I was not able to introduce you both properly to our audience. The irony is that we're talking about the internet and I have a fluctuating internet at home. So I'm really sorry, and thank you so much for sharing your views. I definitely joined in and took away a lot from the session. So thank you so much. Now, because of the fluctuating internet, you'll have to all settle for hearing my voice only. I'm so sorry about that. And I'll quickly wrap up the day today. So we've officially reached the end of day one of the Youth IGF India 2020. And personally, I thought the sessions were highly informative and definitely enhanced my knowledge. So I'll just quickly summarize the day for you. We began with understanding Youth IGF India's mission and objectives, and later Anya walked us through the role of United Nations, the work being done by them in the internet governance ecosystem, and your role in it, the youth. Dr. Olivia enthusiastically then introduced the history and development of internet governance, and more importantly, spoke about how the internet governance requires the multi-stakeholder approach. Then we understood the core internet infrastructure and its functioning with the help of Mr. Srinivas. And finally, we heard from Mr. Glenn and Dr. Govind on how the pandemic has changed how we view the internet and the role of internet moving forward in the times of the pandemic. With this summary, I now open the floor up to you to share any comments as to how you felt being a part of the forum today, your thoughts, or any learnings that you're taking back. So if anybody would like to share, please go ahead.
I just want to thank Youth IGF, IHITA, and others for bringing a 3-day good sessions. I was going through the programs, and it's a very, very good topics which is going to be discussed today, tomorrow, and day after. And I would be there all the time. Nihita knows, anytime, any kind of thing. I am organizing APSIG next month, 26th to 28th of November, where I'm bringing many, many more topics of, cybersecurity, privacy, content moderation, next way to IGF, and so many human rights, gender, digital divide, and all these issues, which I am very glad to see that how the youth is also taking very many interest in these aspects and going ahead with what the learning process in the internet governance is.
Thank you so much, Dr. Govind. Would any of the participants like to share their thoughts and remarks?
Yeah, hi, this is Gautam.
Hi, Gautam, please go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to remark on this that it was a really great and informative sessions, and I never thought that an online virtual session may become so interactive, and interacting with the guests that we had it was really a quite learning and great experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that is the beauty of the internet, we were not knowing that, Zoom and all these platforms will help much better way than the physical world.
Yes,
I will tell you, from March onwards till today, I must have gone through 100 and 200 such Zoom classes, Zoom, seminars where I spoke some of these times. And, it is really very one-to-one, very good, experience I got, which, otherwise was not possible through the physical world to going and attending these things.
Definitely,
yes, sir. Thank
sir.
you very much, sir. Yeah.
Yes, we'll take a couple of more, one or two more remarks or comments.
Hi, I'm Joyita. May I share?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. This is the Youth IGF 2020, and I really want to share that it was really a informative session, and of course we all stepped into a internet era. We all are being in a different places, but still we are connected. And during this COVID situation, we are connected without a physical touch, but still connected. So this is the great advantage for the internet evolution actually. And also one of the greatest topic covered by the speakers. So thanks a lot for this session. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can I go next?
Yes, please.
Yes, I want to thank all of you. I was particularly excited for this session, and I would particularly like to thank the speakers for giving me such insights. I teach fourth graders in a low-income community in Bangalore with Teach for India. And this particular session gave me so many insights, so many things were so relatable, I would say. So thank you, Dr. Govind and Mr. Glenn. I was really looking forward to it, and it exceeded my expectations so much.
Thank you. I will say, even you can, we will get connected even after the post this conference or this Youth IGF, and we will be doing more internet governance related stuff. There is a huge knowledge repository is there, which you can always call us and to do any kind of thing in that.
I agree, Dr. Govind. It becomes all the more important at this time to have this conversation about internet governance. And Aishwarya, thank you so much for sharing. We'll take one last response and we'll close. Is there anybody who would like to go next?
Hi, I'm Varni and I'm a teenager. I'm also a panelist for Sunday. I'm kind of one of the youngest people on this conference. I'm 17 years old, and I feel like towards the end we got a lot of insight about the world, about the pre and post pandemic, how internet governs, and that's something I'm also going to be speaking about cybersecurity and women's safety in this pandemic. And thank you for all the wonderful pieces of information that you've given us. They're so insightful, especially for us being teenagers. They're so relevant because we go through cyberbullying and all sorts of stuff on a daily basis. And because while internet might have been a boon for us, it's also turning out to be a bane during the coronavirus, because we're constantly on the screen, and the stale of the blue screen, like, it gives you headaches and migraines, and you like, our screen times have gone from like 1 hour to like 9 hours a day. And we completely agree. And thank you for the session.
Thank you so much, Varni. And we're really excited to have you on the panel discussion on Sunday. All right. We definitely understand we were not able to accommodate all your questions today in the interest of time, but we'll definitely find a way